with backlash from certain parts of the world related to their perception of South Africa's domestic and international policies. Efforts are being made to correct the narrative and communicate South Africa's achievements. This is key to maintaining and increasing the nation's attractiveness as an investment destination. Managing Director at Reputation First Group, Tshepo Matseba, joins us for more. Tshepo, very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. I mean, given all the turmoil that's going on the geopolitical front, the economy, where would you place the state of South Africa's international brand reputation?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in the conversation. So South Africa, I think internationally right now, given the sensitivity around the US and the posture that that country has taken, especially South African Elon Musk, it places South Africa in a difficult position because all the international headlines are leaning towards negative coverage. But that negative coverage doesn't necessarily throughout, it's not skewed towards negativity towards South Africa. It's skewed towards the reality that the people who are talking, the spokespersons of the US who are talking, have chosen a negative slant, and therefore, as a result, we suffer the consequences of that negative slant. But if you ask me, how is South Africa as a country performing internationally as a brand, and how is the country performing better? I think South Africa took a wise decision not to get into the mud with the US, in the sense that President Cyril Ramaphosa talks consistently about diplomacy, and it is that diplomacy that is helping to protect South Africa's image. Otherwise, we would really be dancing in the mud, and things could actually be worse than they seem.
As you say that, I mean, there are calls from unions and other political parties for President Cyril Ramaphosa to take a hard line on the US, immediately find a way for a proper engagement, send an official delegation team. And with that said, what impact do you think the perceptions that the US has about South Africa may have on other countries about South Africa?
Yeah, look, Ukraine demonstratively said no to the US when the president was there, Zelensky. So did France, and so did the entire Europe, so did Canada. They've managed to say no. But economically, remember, the US is a key trading partner, but it's not the only one, but it's a key trading partner. But a trade partnership means that there's a mutual exchange. So many countries on this, in Africa specifically, would not stretch AGOA without South Africa's participation, because in any case, only, like they say, around 5% of countries that participate in AGOA, as an example, are actually stretching its benefits, and South Africa is leading the pack. So there's a benefit for the USA to trade with South Africa, to enjoy political and social relations with South Africa. The current environment is such that you have leaders who have decided to take a posture that is negative against a particular country, but many other countries and many other entities around the world. So we're not the only ones. I think South Africa needs to find its own leverage, and that leverage could mean when we have A and you have B, and without A you can't have B. And part of that is what Minister Mantashe rightfully said, that they're benefiting from our minerals industry, but you can't go with that approach on its own.
Yes.
What you ought to do is combine diplomacy and commercial to make sense of the environment. So countries such as Botswana, Zimbabwe, all the countries in the SADC region will feel the pain and pinch, as you've seen with Lesotho, where Trump said, well, I don't even know where that is, which is not far from truth. So you can see that the politics of the White House are of noise and chaos, deliberately to provoke us towards talking about the elephant in the room, which is the discussion about really Israel and Gaza and Palestine and our case at the ICJ.
You know, I ask you this because for some countries, South Africa's so-called crimes, the very bad things, are acts of courage, and its steadfast support for Palestine's struggle against Israel's genocidal war. These are acts of resistance against the imperial order. I mean, is there that notion and that perspective when one looks at South Africa and its approach and standing on certain matters?
Yeah, look, South Africa has invested over a period of time during Mandela days as a peacekeeper, and the fact that we were leading a mission collectively to Ukraine to discuss a peace between Ukraine and Russia, and the many peacekeeping missions on the continent demonstrate that South Africa is positioned very well around democracy, Ubuntu, and the ethos of humanity first. But unfortunately, that is not necessarily going to be seen by somebody who's driving a particular agenda and a particular narrative deliberately to get a certain outcome. And that's why it's important for South Africa to, instead of losing focus on the ball and focusing too much on the Trump matters and international headlines, is to focus on fixing domestic issues, getting the machinery called South Africa to keep functioning and to get better, fix services, fix the cities, fix our value proposition, get domestic buy-in from citizens so that we rally together in this very, very difficult journey and accept that during Trump's tenure, perhaps we are going to have far more difficulties. Our president commits that he's having direct conversations, or that his team, Team South Africa, is having conversations with Washington, and to an extent, some things are formalized. But I think that the journey is going to be very, very hard, and it is important for the citizens, in as much as the media, to start shaping the narrative in a constructive manner so that we put the facts first and position the story constructively. And right now, having different ministers speak as they wish on international relations, and while we have a minister of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, is very saddening, as you would have seen with the minister in the water environment, Minister Mantashe. And then you have the GNU complexity, where the Democratic Alliance seems to be singing a completely different tune from the government. And that's going to cause market frustration, citizen frustration, media frustration globally, and stakeholder misunderstanding, because we have so many spokespersons speaking on the same matter.
What opportunity do you think South Africa's hosting of the G20 presents in the midst of this turmoil?
I mean, G20 is a serious platform. We shouldn't make a mistake about it. It gives us an opportunity to showcase our capabilities, our financial system, banking system, sophisticated technology, infrastructure. When you look at all of that, G20 really creates that space. Unfortunately, again, you have a country that said, well, we are not attending. But what I like about South Africa in terms of G20 is that South Africa has decided that agenda we're driving. We're moving forward. We're pressing ahead. This is far too important than a message on Twitter, even though those messages may have some or serious economic and social challenges, as we've seen with the withdrawal of funding, for example, for HIV programs. The reality is that G20 places us on the global map. South Africa is not new to G20. In addition, South Africa is also not new to global partnerships, global conversations. We are part, for example, we participate every year or each time it happens at the World Economic Forum. The World Bank takes us seriously in terms of opinions and the insights that come from that environment. We are really a strong voice within the context of the United Nations. And so the narrative about G20 creates space, I think, for business and the public sector in government and society to collaborate and showcase our economic opportunities, and importantly to tell the Mzansi narrative about our culture, our people, and the fact that we are people of peace and love, despite the difficulties, of course, that we face in terms of three issues: logistics, crime, and corruption. But when you look at South Africa incorporated holistically, this is a great country, and that's why even some of the key supporters of AfriForum, for example, are saying we are not leaving this country. It is too beautiful to let go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening.